Hello occupiers, today is Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, and I'm sorry, this software is freaking out on me or something, because, well, I'll just have to do with what I have. Okay, but today is Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, and something put me in a better mood. I gotta show you something really neat that I just saw on C-SPAN before I get into really what I wanted to talk about. Okay, here we go. Check this out, this is interesting.
You are only giving information. For example, if someone says the meeting is at 2, and you know it is at 3, you go like this, at the facilitator at 3. This is a point of process. This means that the General Assembly has gone off course. And it needs to be redirected. For example, if we're discussing a proposal to buy chairs, and someone says, I need an umbrella, you hold up the point of process to remind them of where the conversation should be going.
They said they were going to brief on the consensus-based democratic process.
We are grateful that you are here, standing in the rain. And we apologize for being late. It was imperative that we went to the University of Maryland and touch base with some students who are really inspired by the march. Which tells
It's Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, and they're really organizing some kind of administrative some kind of order. It's been kind of sloppy so far.
We have deadlines. We don't have all day to listen to this. There will be a Q&A for the press. There will be a Q&A for the press. Please respect the process and wait for it.
You're done.
That's pretty much. Which website exactly were you having on? Next is Lena.
What are you going to do today at night?
Okay, this is for the Occupy the Highway March in Washington, D.C. Probably just before the Super Committee deadline.
This gentleman right here was hit by a car last night as we were crossing an off-ramp to a major interstate. That's a big danger. What is it? Citizen Kepler. EICIUENKEPLER. As well as muscle fatigue and Perchance.
Respiratory infection.
Yes.
They were briefing on organization for med stuff and went over personal testimonies.
I've been in this phone document here for a while, knowing that the government is actually, I'm one of the people who believe that we have our answer from the government, that yes, we are going to have to fight this through. And my question to you was, are you planning on marching, keep this march going to where we keep having more and more people join the
So there you have it. I apologize that it's a bit hard to hear what I'm saying with my cheap microphones, and also I live in a place with paper-thin walls, and I'm a little self-conscious of my neighbors thinking I'm talking to myself and stuff like that. So I don't always talk loud enough, or my microphones don't pick up that well sometimes. But what I was saying was that I was noticing that, and this was today, Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011, and this was called Occupy the Street, which seemed to be centered around assembling for tax reform or something about the decision with tomorrow's super committee deadline. And I was kind of impressed with an effort amongst that assembly to administrate some order. And I noticed that they said they were going, the facilitators, they appointed facilitators, and they were briefing the people. They said that they were going to brief on the consensus-based democratic process to work within. And they also mentioned, when the camera was off, before I noticed something interesting to start filming, and I heard them talk about there was going to be a briefing. They organized a briefing about a system for med stuff, which is good. And I like the way that's going. So this is an example of something that the other locations where there are occupiers can imitate. And I think that's a step in the right direction, and I'm proud of those people who organized that kind of order and structure. So I'm pleased with that. And well, tomorrow's the super committee deadline, and go kick some tail and do your thing of communicating what you want and trying to persuade people. Very good. Congratulations. Oh, one more thing. I have to be very thorough in this political environment, not to be misunderstood, and kick some tail, but kick some tail legally. Okay? Alright. Be peaceful citizens, and, figuratively speaking, kick some tail. Alright. Now I'm going to get into what I really intended to talk about today. Here we go. Hello, occupiers. Today is Tuesday, November 22nd, 2011. Please listen to this very carefully, and may God bless you and keep you and restore us back to sanity and sound values. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Now, I'd like to give you a directive for channeling your efforts toward your goals for economic equity and reducing corporate influence in politics and on the environment through the democratic process. Recently, I was doing research on my own for my own political activism, and I happened to chance upon information about a demonstration that will be taking place called Occupy the Courts. It is handled through an organization called Move to Amend, and you can find information about this at movetoamend.org. It sounded like a constructive, concrete step action that can be taken to affect change of policy for a concrete, specific policy change in accordance with your goals. Okay, here we go. Now I am reading to provide you information about this from Move to Amend's website about Occupy the Courts. I am reading now. January 20th, 2012, Move to Amend occupies the courts. Call to action. Inspired by our friends at Occupy Wall Street and Dr. Cornel West, Move to Amend is planning bold action to mark the second anniversary of the infamous Citizens United versus Federal Elections Commission decision. Now I'm inserting my own comment. I'll provide information to educate you about the significance about this court decision in reference to your concerns about corporations. Now I'm reading again. Occupy the Courts will be a one-day occupation of federal courthouses across the country, including the U.S. Supreme Court in Washington, D.C., on Friday, January 20th, 2012. Move to Amend volunteers across the USA will lead the charge on the judiciary, which created and continues to expand corporate personhood rights. Americans across the country are on the march, and they are marching our way. They carry signs that say, quote, "Corporations are not people. Money is not speech." Exclamation point, end quote. And they are chanting those truths at the top of their lungs. The time has come to make these truths evident to the courts. Join us Friday, January 20th, 2012 at a federal courthouse building near you. Click here to sign up. Okay, now I'm done reading. And on this website is included also organizing resources. There's a list of locations of federal courts where you can look up a federal court in your area as you join this occupation. There's also information on how to obtain a permit for your group. And it says, to obtain a permit for your action, contact the court you will be targeting and submit the application to the GSA Facilities Manager. So it tells you who at the court to address your application to, the GSA Facilities Manager. Find out how they want you to submit the application. Oftentimes it can be done by fax. So you're legally in the clear by submitting an application for a permit. You can obtain this application by a link to a PDF file which you can print out and then submit to the GSA facilities manager of your local federal court. On this website, there is also some links to posters that you could print out, and that would be fun. Printing out posters and putting up posters to communicate a message, and also pamphlets that you can print out so that you can pass them out to communicate the message about this concrete legal action. Okay. Now I'd like to give you some information about this court case called United Citizens versus Federal Elections Commission, to explain to you why this particular occupation is constructive, strategic, effective for your cause. This is what the whole case was about. Back in 2002, Congress passed a law called the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act of 2002. It's otherwise known as the McCain-Feingold Act. And it was a law that was passed that was very good for the things that you're concerned about with corporations. It prohibited corporations and unions from using their very powerful money to make electioneering communications. Basically, it prohibited them from putting TV ads out or other media communications within 30 days of a primary or 60 days of a general election. And this limited some of the things that corporations could do with their money to influence politics and run politicians' campaigns. They did some things. They put some laws to that effect. Some other things this law did that were very good for things that you're concerned about were they put regulation on the ways that corporations could give money to politicians that are running for office and fund their campaigns. Now, this was a law that did some good for the things you're concerned about to minimize the amount of power that corporations have. However, in 2008, something happened. Okay? There was a conservative nonprofit organization called Citizens United that violated this law by airing a film that was critical of Hillary Clinton, and the only purpose of the film was just to lambaste Hillary Clinton during an election. And they thought they could get away with it with some loopholes, that it was just a movie or whatever. However, the Federal Election Commission, I'm thinking, didn't think so. And there was a dispute over whether the group could do this and advertise the film by broadcasting ads featuring Clinton's image in apparent violation of this Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act of 2002. Now, they aired these ads in 2007 during the 2008 campaign, but they took it to court, and in January, United Citizens lost, and the lower court upheld the provisions of the Bipartisan Reform Act. So they appealed it, and they went to the Supreme Court. When they went to the Supreme Court, then it was decided that, well, here was the holding for that Supreme Court decision. The holding was a provision of the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act prohibiting unions, corporations, and not-for-profit organizations from broadcasting electioneering communications within 60 days of a general election or 30 days of a primary election violates the free speech clause of the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. Now, I'm sure you folks are probably very concerned about the First Amendment provisions for free speech. However, these free speech provisions are for citizens and people. So it was not only implied, but they had the reasoning that since a corporation is a person, that they have the same free speech rights to, not be regulated in these ways. But a corporation is really not a person, and if they are a person, they have all that money to make ads and give money to politicians, and that gives them much more power than the average person. So that does not take away your free speech rights. That just means that they don't apply to a non-person entity that is really a business that doesn't have legs and arms and doesn't talk, and give them that kind of power more than the power that you have in that situation. So that's why for you, this Supreme Court decision was a bad decision. And, well, I would say for everyone and for everyone's well-being in America, it was a bad decision. And part of the purpose of this occupation is to go to the courts and demonstrate for what you want, that there be an amendment to the Constitution to overturn this decision and amend the Constitution to say that a corporation is not a person. During my research on this, I found a quote in criticism of this Supreme Court decision by David Carries. He says, "Money isn't speech and corporations aren't people. You see, if they make an amendment to the Constitution that corporations aren't persons, then laws like this that limit the amount of power they have to influence campaigns through ads and so forth, the First Amendment rights of free speech will not apply to them, and then they won't be able to use their money in that way, and then people like you will have more ability to have some influence through the democratic process." So that's the kind of thing that they're trying to work for and what they're trying to do, and it'd be a good thing for you to be a part of that. Now, for me, it really doesn't have anything to do with for sticking up for Hillary Clinton or sticking up for, you know, not criticizing Hillary Clinton, but that's really quite incidental to me, or, you know, peripheral. Irregardless of who's who in the case and everything, the bottom line is that the Supreme Court made a decision that because a corporation is a person like you, then they have the right to violate laws that limit their power, by considering that they have the same free speech as you. So, that's just really what it's all about. And while I was researching and found this website, I also found that they had a petition, and a petition is a very good thing. And they will probably do petitions. If they're not going to do petitions, maybe your group can do a petition about something about petitioning for more campaign reform. And somebody could do research about looking into campaign finance reform. And, you know, looking up about how to do a petition for that, or doing a petition about this very purpose, that Congress will pass a amendment to the Constitution to end the personhood of corporations. And I'm sure this organization will already have that set up, because I saw a petition online and I wanted to sign the petition. However, it said time was up to sign that online petition, but then I remembered that I already did it before. It's like back in 2010, when this court decision was, you know, first a landmark decision. I already did it back then. I signed that petition. And you could do a petition drive while you're there. And please, when you're there, it's good to demonstrate and assemble, and you like to rally and shout what you want, but be civil about it, and just limit yourself to lawful things that you can do, and through the process and channels in our democratic system, and be peaceable. What else did I want to say? I did have one more suggestion that's a completely different other topic. It's totally different, but something that could be inspirational. You see, a long time ago I read this book called Cry the Beloved Country, and it's also a movie that you could probably find online through Netflix or on YouTube or something, called Cry the Beloved Country, and it stars James Earl Jones, and it's about political things that was going on with apartheid in South Africa and Johannesburg, and racial and economic inequality in South Africa. And in the plot of the story, it goes over as a historical novel a bus boycott, and there are parts in the story that go into how it was organized and so forth. And it could be inspirational. It could give you some insight, some ideas on how to organize and do activism. It might be fun just to, if there was a way that you'd be able to, watch a movie together and get ideas. Okay, but I think I've said just about all I wanted to say, and I hope that you're able to start to plan to be a part of this on January 20th. Occupy the courts and make preparations for that. And happy assembling, and God bless you. P.S. One more thing. I have to make a correction to some information that I said. I referred to, in the beginning portion, that demonstration in Washington, D.C. that I saw on C-SPAN. I referred to it as Occupy the Streets, and that's not the actual name. As I was looking at the video again and trying to decipher in the graphics what it said the name of the demonstration was, and I couldn't read it. It's Occupy the something way, and I really believe that I saw on there that it was in Washington, D.C., and it's just in time for the super committee deadline where they're negotiating budgetary matters, trying to reduce the deficit, and deliberating over tax reform. So I'm happy to see what's going on down there, that at least one of these locations is appointing, they call them facilitators, to provide some order and establishing some administration about medical and organizing briefings to organize the effort. And I encourage that sort of thing around all the locations. And I'm sorry I got the name wrong, and I have no way right now of figuring out what it was actually called. Alright, now I'm done. God bless you. I'm going to bed. I was up all night doing this.